Yo, everybody. Welcome to Off Panel, a weekly interview podcast about all things comics, brought to you by Sketch.com. I'm your host, David Harper, and this week's guest is the grand poobah behind The Beat. It's Heidi MacDonald. Thanks for coming on, Heidi.
Hey, David. How's it going?
What's new? It's going well now that I've not totally jacked up my intro.
Well, I think both of us are suffering from various effects of pandemic mania or whatever it is. Like, what day is it? What time it is? I just took a nap. I just woke up, so I'm drinking some Diet Coke. I'm hoping I can rally here. And yeah, what day is it?
It's Thursday, I think.
I actually, for the first time today, forgot what day it was.
There you go. Yeah.
I was walking around. I try to go outside. Not every day, but like today, I really felt the need to go outside and walk around. And then I said to myself, is it Thursday? Is it Wednesday? Like, what is happening? So, and then I came back to consciousness. I said, it's Thursday. That's right, because this happened yesterday. So,
and we don't even have new comic book day to like measure the week off of. That was the thing. It would be Wednesday and it would be Saturday and Sunday. That'd be my frame of reference for everything. Any other day, no idea. No idea what was happening.
Yeah, my frame of reference is wrestling. And I know it's terrible that wrestling was granted this status as an essential business in Florida, which is corrupt as hell. And wrestling is corrupt as hell. But, I know that there's wrestling on Monday, on Wednesday, and Friday. And today is a day with no wrestling.
There you go.
It's Thursday or Tuesday, and I guess it must be Thursday.
Actually, this reminds me. I need to add you on Pokemon Go because you had that in the beginning of one of your newsletters, and I was going to add you, and I completely forgot. Because that's one thing my wife and I have been doing is we do both that and like the Harry Potter one, Wizards Unite. Just take a nice walk. The nice thing in Alaska is there's no one out because it's still really snowy, and so you can just take a walk. You don't even see people, and you just do Whiz Biz or Poke Go stuff, and boom. Or New York, not exactly the same thing. So how is it in New York right now?
Well, I'm very close to one of the ground zeros because I live a block from NYU and Bellevue, and at night I hear this buzz, this drone, which I suspect is the refrigerator morgue trucks, but I haven't gone to investigate. It's just a guess. And I hear sirens all the time. And so that's not awesome. There's people who work in hospitals in my building. Out in the streets, you see people in scrubs all over the place. And so, it's kind of crazy, I would say. And but there's also where I live is the other way is kind of a rich neighborhood, and apparently a lot of people have fled already. So the streets aren't jammed with people. Like when I go out on my 6-foot walks, it's not that difficult to avoid people, and so sometimes it's eerily empty, and there's also a lot of homeless people. So I call it 12 monkeys.
Yes, so, I've seen those like pictures of people where they're like taking pictures on the streets that are normally Instagram streets, but they're completely empty. And it's actually like the ideal Instagram time, but there's no one there because pandemic.
Yeah, it's very eerie, but it is funny. I've always complained about all the movies that, where there's a disaster, they always show New York. And, sometimes it's upsetting, like as in I Am Legend. A lot of that is filmed around Grand Central on Park Avenue, again, not very far from where I live. Mm-hmm. And when I saw that movie, it was kind of a little upsetting to see these scenes. And now they're pretty much real life.
It's very weird. Yeah. I do have to admit, I always thought that the disaster movies would be more exciting. But like living in one is more just like, I made this joke on Twitter, but I never expected to be Matt Damon in Contagion. And that's basically it, where you like sit inside all the time and yell at people to not go outside. But that's kind of where we're at. I do want to ask, before we jump into the comic stuff, we're going to be talking about the broader industry stuff. But what's weirder for you? Okay, hold on. It's April 16th. No New York Mets or no new weekly comics?
Well, I get so many books and I don't read that many comics. I don't read periodical comics. I only read graphic novels, generally speaking. So that is actually a non-starter for me. But I would give anything to have baseball. So not having baseball is, they have some plans that aren't really safe to start it up again. And, again, selfishly, I'm like, oh, if only they could do it.
Like the Arizona one?
Yeah, I think people are really starved for new content, you know? People
Yeah.
are starved for something to happen, you know? All of our lives are on hold right now. And I mean, I do think the idea of like, oh, we need sports. I don't think that's just a metaphor. We just need some kind of a thing to be happening. What is it? The Lithuanian soccer league is still going or something like that.
Yeah, I've seen some really interesting stuff that people have been getting into. There's like a Formula One, but for marbles called Marbula One, where
Hmm.
like there's this guy who races marbles. I did not know this existed, but this like NBA guy that I followed, this NBA writer, he now is like obsessed with that. And I'm just like, it is kind of amazing. Like we're really kind of plumbing the depths of the internet to try to find sports like type experiences.
Yeah, I think people just want to have something where the outcome isn't known.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I mean, even though wrestling, the outcome is known, but it still kind of gives the illusion of being something that's happening and unexpected and, moving forward. So, yeah, and Pokemon Go. I play that also. And there's a gym right by my house, and they expanded the gym.
Radius.
Yeah, so before I could never get into the gym, but now from where I live, but now pretty much like 3/4 of the time I can actually get into the gym. So that's exciting.
Yeah, yeah. It is interesting though because it's like I don't know the even though you don't read weekly comics, it does feel like just because of all of this, there's not really news anymore. It's like I get like a press release from Vault announcing a new book, and I'm just like that feels like a really weird time to announce a book.
Well, so what's funny about that is like when this first began, I was busy as could be. And because everybody was freaking out and there was so much news. I mean, obviously there was all the stuff, are the comics coming out? There was all the Diamond news. There was the ComicHub expedition, which I'm sure we'll talk about. There was all these things happening basically, and me and Joe Grunewald, my managing editor, we were just like crazy, busy,
Mm-hmm.
and I actually felt guilty talking to my friends because so many of them have been laid off, or we'd be talking, I'd be like, oh well, I'm really busy, and they'd kind of scowl at me, and but I will say this week definitely things slowed down. Everybody's just kind of realized that this isn't ending anytime soon, and this is our life. And God bless Vault, though. I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
how bad things are in Montana. They're trying. I mean, there was this what was it, Mangamo thing
I
today.
don't know what is that.
So this was announced. I didn't know anything about it either, but there was a big story in Publishers Weekly. So basically, Dallas Midaw, who is very well known in manga circles.
Yeah, it was the thing that was in your newsletter.
Yeah, and he, but yeah. So they have started. So apparently, some Japanese and American investors have been working on this app that would give access to manga for a set price, some kind of Netflix for manga on your phone.
Mm-hmm.
Short version. And so it just launched today, and they have Attack on Titan. And some other, which is the best known by far. Some other ones that I guess are more popular if you're really into manga, and then like a bunch of things that have great titles, like How I Lived Without My Large Intestine, which I'm so reading. I can't wait to really dig into that. So things are happening. I actually got I get like PMs and DMs and people's like, oh, can you please cover my Kickstarter or launch this venture? And I'm like, yeah, we'll try. We'll try to do it. And so people are trying to move forward in this. And well, Spike had a very successful Kickstarter right towards the beginning of this with Lackadaisy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that like a couple $100,000, right?
It did. I think it just passed 275.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is really interesting because I actually think that there is, I don't know, it feels wrong to say this, but there's almost, in some ways, like kind of opportunities from this. Like, I think it's really interesting seeing how comic creators have responded to this. Like, you see creators creating like YouTube channels, and you see people doing more Instagram lives, and you see more people doing Twitch streams, and kind of embracing these things that I actually think are really helpful to their careers in the long term. It's kind of like building up that, and I hate to say it, that personal brand, and trying to build up who they are as not just creators, but also people. Because I think that a lot of times with this type of stuff, that we're almost it's not just creator owned stuff, but a lot of times you're like investing in the person as much as you are the comic or the content or the characters or whatever, especially in 2020. And it's really been interesting to see how people have started to kind of take advantage of that. Like, I think we're honestly going to see a wave of creators doing things on Gumroad that we never would have otherwise. I mean, the Brubaker and Marcos Martin thing that's Friday on Panel Syndicate, that obviously was in the works for a while, but I think you're going to probably see more pop-ups like that because, people are on pencils down. People are trying to find ways to make money, and they're going to try to like use the technology available to them.
Absolutely. And we do have all this technology. I mean, 6 weeks ago, I did have a Zoom account, and I was like, ugh, it's so annoying that they send me all these emails all the time about using Zoom. I don't want to do this. And now I'm like, oh my God, how can I get my Zoom background up on all my platforms? And, I'm doing kind of Jimmy Aquino of Comic News Insider and I are kind of doing we always talked about doing a team up. And so now we're kind of doing a weekly team up that we call Comic Beat Insider. So, and we do it on Zoom, security flaws be damned. But yeah, absolutely. There's all these tools and all these different ways to view things. I mean, David, I always laughed at Twitch. I had no interest in Twitch whatsoever. Right?
Yeah.
And now, even though I know it's huge, it's just I avoid anything to do with video games. And now everyone is on Twitch doing things. And so, human beings are very adaptable. That is one of our great survival skills that we have. And we're seeing people evolve before our eyes.
Right. It is really, it's really weird to think about when you were talking about like, just kind of how things change. I always like the thing I think back on is for comics in a lot of ways, like the fulcrum moment was Emerald City Comic Con. Will it happen or won't it happen? And it's weird to think about that. Like literally, I think like a month to 2 days ago, you and I were supposed to be in Seattle having breakfast.
That's right.
It's very weird. It's very weird.
Well, the weirdest thing is that I did go to C2E2, which was 2 weeks before Emerald City. And I stayed, we did our podcast in there. I was with Johanna Draper Carlson and Bridget Alverson. And, we thought nothing of it, really. We just went to the show and we're hanging out and doing things. And of course, everybody was joking. No one was shaking hands. Everybody was doing fist bumps or elbow bumps or, whatever. And
it was kind of cute then, probably, too.
It was very cute. And talking about, I wonder if there will be an Emerald City. And so this is like, my bucket list thing is that I always wanted to meet Carl Urban. Like, who doesn't, right? Yeah. And so I was supposed to go to some junket for the boys, and then I didn't go, or it didn't happen. And then I was like, I guess I'll just get my photo with him. I mean, that'll be cool. I mean, I don't want to pay for it. But then like Sunday of C2E2, I woke up at 6 a.m. and I was thinking, I'll get a photo with Carl Urban at Emerald City. And then I woke up at 6 a.m. in my hotel room, and I was lying there and I was thinking, you know what? I better get that photo today. And because
who knows when you're going to do it again?
Who knows what is going to happen? And I went online and I'd never done this before, actually. And so I signed up, it was $100, and but I happened to have the money. And then I went and I did it, and I got my photo, put it up on Instagram like you do, and all that sort of stuff. And, now I'm so glad I did that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because honestly, there's so many things that might not exist, and one of them is celebrity autograph cons.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've been following the Ace Comic-Con story.
No, I haven't actually. Like, that just kind of escapes my world. What's going on with it?
So Ace Comic-Con is a very celebrity.
Oh, I know what that is. Yeah.
Right. So it's a very celebrity focused group of conventions. It's run by Stephen Schanes and Gareb Schanes, who were the Wizard. They did Wizard Magazine, and they did Wizard World. They founded Wizard World, and then they started this kind of, it's very boutique. They only do 2 or 3 shows a year, but they have like killer guest lists, like
unbelievable lists.
Yeah, unbelievable. So they were supposed to have one in Boston, like back in March, that had Tom Holland and Jake Gyllenhaal and Chris Evans. I think it was Chris Hemsworth, not Chris Evans, and Tessa Thompson and Hayden Christensen, and you just name it. They were there. And so they But of course, it got canceled. And then there was like a big deal about getting refunds. Because, I mean, I'll tell you, it's like when you go to one of these shows, you don't spend like, $100. You spend like $800
Yeah,
to
because
get
those VIP packages are not cheap. Not just going there is not cheap.
Right. So you can, fans will spend $800, $1,000 to get all the photos and autographs that they want, group photos and all this. And so, I mean, we're not just talking, oh, I want my $75 back for my ticket, right? And so now I'm forgetting the name of the company that does Epic Ticks. No, that's Epic Photos. I'll have to look it up. But so anyway, it just went that before anything had happened, the first news that came out was that Ace Comic Con was suing Grotix. That's the company. That's the company that sells the tickets.
Uh-huh.
They were suing them, saying they were holding on to the money to give back to the people. And then Grotix had this whole like, you have the money. We have to get the money from you. And it seems that let's see, I'm looking at my story. How much was it now? It's a lot of money. It's like a couple million. Is it a couple million? Yeah, $2.3 million. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that Grotix passed along to Ace. And then when Grotix said, oh, we need the money back so we can give the refunds, they got back $600,000.
Oops.
So then Ace sued Grotix saying they were holding on to the money. And then Grotix said, you have the money.
Yeah.
So I don't even know. And then on Twitter, if you went, everybody's like, I haven't gotten a refund. How are we supposed to get a refund? So
it's a hot mess.
It's a hot mess. And as I noted at the time, it's like they were so fast to sue. I mean, come on, that's ridiculous. Grotix is very, very, very respected company that works with tons of Comic-Cons. It works with the Salt Lake City shows, Planet Comic-Con, like all these shows. And like you couldn't work this out like adults.
No kidding.
Yeah. So, now the speculation is that Ace is obviously, what happened to that extra money? I guess they don't have the money anymore. And maybe a little deficit funding, allegedly. I don't know. But when we come out of this pandemic in 2020, 21, 22, whenever it is, will there be an Ace Comic-Con?
Well, I mean, honestly, what Comic-Cons will there be? Like, that's the thing that's really fascinating during all of this is because, so when you look at Emerald City Comic-Con, comic creators were bouncing out really like quite a bit as we were approaching like the postponement, but they had like I didn't see almost any celebrities that had bounced out of it, and now it seems like I don't know. It seems like San Diego still wants to do it, and who knows if they're going to do it. I mean, I can't imagine they are, but especially given the fact that they're the mayor of Los Angeles, obviously not the same place as San Diego, but the mayor of Los Angeles was saying he can't imagine that there will be concerts or sporting events with audiences until 2021. I don't imagine San Diego is going to be like, oh, let's put 150,000 people in a building.
Yeah, and who would go? No one would go. I mean, that's the thing. So I think with San Diego, I mean, I don't have any inside info on this. I just have my own intuitions. And, the thing with all of this is insurance and,
right.
Like, I think they have to wait until the municipality makes it a force majeure so that they can ask for the refunds. Now, I will say this for Southern California. It's not like there's earthquakes in San Diego, but, there could be an earthquake in Los Angeles the day before San Diego or the day of San Diego. And I'm pretty sure that the Comic-Con people have always put in, provisions should there be some kind of disaster that prevents the show from going on or disrupts the show. So I'm pretty sure they were prepared for some kind of disaster. Obviously, no one foresaw.
Wimbledon did.
Who did?
Did you hear about the Wimbledon had been paying $2 million a year for like pandemic insurance, and then they got $141 million for it because it came up. It worked out finally. Who even knew that there was pandemic insurance anyways?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can't believe that the insurance industry is going to go bankrupt also. I mean, nobody's really looked at that. There's so many levels to this. But like, insurance, hey, sure, there's a earthquake in Southern California, you're going to lose a ton of events, obviously. But nobody, insurance company, well, maybe they did, but the whole world is shut down all of a sudden. I'm not sure they were set up to pay out for that kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
and that's the least of our worries right now. I worry about touching a doorknob. That's my survival level event. And
yeah, exactly. God, it is really amazing how it's all recontextualized. I do want to say one thing before we jump into a thing that I want to do. I also got my Carl Urban photo.
Oh.
I actually DM'd it to you. So for some reason, he was the only celebrity I ever want to get a photo with. And I actually did it at Emerald City Comic Con. I was like texting my wife. I was like, should I do it? Should I do it? And she's like, do it. What are you talking about? Just whatever. And I was about to go meet with you, hilariously enough, I think. And I messaged, I went up to the line of people that were waiting, to get a signature. And you could also get a selfie with him. And I asked the woman who was waiting on the line for Reed Pop. And I was like, how long do you think this will be? And she was like, looked at the line. She's like, probably 10 minutes. And I was like, okay. And I got in line and it was literally almost exactly 10 minutes. That's how experienced she was. Anyways, I get up there and I instead of taking a selfie, I get somebody else to take a picture because I'm horrible at selfies. And I asked him if we can do a dread face. And he's like, a couple tough looking guys. And I was like, all right, yeah. And we do a dread face and I was horrible at it. And he was really amazing because he's Carl Urban. But yeah. I'm glad that we share the love of the herbs because that guy's amazing.
Well, he is. And he just, when you do the photo, as I'm sure with the autographs, literally we're probably in the same space for about 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And, but even in those 10 seconds,
just magic.
There was it's an aura that he has about him. And funnily enough, he posts on Instagram. So I follow Carl Urban on Instagram.
That's respectable. That's fine.
Funny.
Fine.
But anyway, he posted a photo of himself in a mask, going to the supermarket and celebrities, they're just like us.
I know, right? Exactly. He's probably afraid of touching doorknobs too.
He probably is. It's I'm sure the Kardashians have their servants around or whatever in quarantine, but for a lot of people, it's just, they're on their own. Here's a funny thought. I want to get to the meat of the thing, but they had the Saturday Night Live. That was the quarantine, everybody was on Zoom and they had Tom Hanks hosting it. And, he was in one of his kitchens, as somebody joked, and, doing it. And then I was like, Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson, they've already had it. They don't,
they're good now.
They're fine. They can do whatever they want, so.
that is actually kind of nice. I'm not saying I want it because that is the last thing I want. I actually had almost a straight up panic attack when my wife and I had to go to Target. I was on steroids because I was coming off another illness, and I was just the combination of the drugs I was on with the fact that there was nothing on the shelves. I was like, get me out of here, I gotta go. Yeah. And my wife was like, no. Anyways, let's jump into the thing I want to do. I want to do a guessing game. I want to talk about some very specific hypotheticals, and those are just a jump off for a conversation. You ready to do this?
Okay, sure.
Okay, so here's the first thing I want you to guess about. Will Diamond be the only direct market distributor in comics at the end of this?
Well, if by the end of this you mean when
everything's back in action.
Okay. No.
Interesting. And I just want to say this is straight up guessing. Heidi and I talk to people, but at the same time, no one knows. No one knows.
Right.
But
Nobody knows.
So what makes you say that?
Well, a couple things. So let me preamble a little bit. And like I said, I've been napping and I'm woozy. And so if I stray away from your point at all, bring me back. Just reel me back in, David. Reel me in.
Sure.
Okay. So, you wanted to do this podcast last week, and I said I've literally been on 2 other podcasts about it. So let's wait till a week, and there'll be some new developments and everything. And so one of the developments was that I had this epiphany, which I think I mentioned to you when we were DMing. But there's been all this thing. It was very obvious that Marvel and DC were looking for alternate means of distribution. In fact, DC said they were looking for alternate means of distribution. They said that. They did a press release. So they were doing it. This is not imaginary.
I also want to say really quick that I had heard that they were doing that before this.
Right. Well, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so then the retailers staged a revolt. And everybody who was thinking of a different method had to withdraw that plan. Okay, so all right, fine and good. It's like Walmart's going to kill comic shops, digital's going to kill comic shops. This is going to kill comic shops. That's going to kill comic shops. I mean, nothing has killed the comic shops that the retailers said was going to kill the comic shops. I mean, obviously the pandemic is way bigger than Walmart comics,
right?
But then, as we go on, what do we do for fun? I mean, you have another human that you're quarantining with.
That's
so,
true.
You could talk to another human or play Risk or something. I'm by myself. And so what do? I shop. I don't actually buy anything, but I go online and I look at things, like, well, it's a great outfit. Where would I wear it? Okay, I'm not going to buy it. But, and everything is back ordered. We had the flour shortage, the yeast shortage. Baking is so big. You can't get any kind of exercise equipment. I need a new yoga mat. They're either $100 or back ordered. So, everybody's going online and shopping. And there's one thing you can't buy online, and that's comic books.
Oh, you mean because like Amazon won't ship?
No, well, I mean, you could buy old comic books.
Oh, you mean new comic books? Yeah,
but you can't buy new comic books. And when I was talking about earlier, it's like, if only something were happening. This is serial fiction. This is why people love comics periodicals. And if comic books were coming out now, it would be a blessing for people, right?
Right. Wait, really quick. I do want to say that I find this to be really interesting because we're also in a society where like people are watching like The Office for like the 400th time or discovering The Office for the first time now, or like watching, I don't know, Friends. Like I know somebody that's watching Battlestar Galactica right now for the first time.
That's a good one. I'm going to do that.
Yeah, Battlestar Galactica is amazing. So we revisit all these things in other mediums that we haven't, watched or whatever before. But I do think it's interesting that like there's not like besides like Tiger King, what new hotness is coming out right now for TV? I honestly, well, that's a fascinating like thought experiment for me. Would Tiger King have been such a sensation if it weren't for the pandemic? I don't know.
No, it would not the way. I mean, it certainly would be very hot because it's compelling and crazy and unexpected. But it wouldn't have been the biggest thing that there was for the first 2 weeks of this. And.
But my ultimate point, though, is I am surprised that comics is so focused on the new when so many other entertainment mediums aren't necessarily that way. Like you go on there and like you can look on the Apple movie charts for what the best selling things. And a lot of times it's like whatever's on sale. It's like for some reason Amadeus is in the top 20 this week because it's 99 cents to rent. Amadeus is great. Don't get me wrong. There's no Amadeus slander. But at the same time, it's like you do that. And that's a thing. But instead, like a lot of times I find that people lament the fact that new comics aren't coming out, but there's so many comics you still could be buying and reading and everything. I don't know. It's just, it's interesting.
No, that is true. And I mean, the same thing goes for books. It's like, people are like, oh, I'm going to read this book now, that I always wanted to read. And I mean, if you saw what I'm sitting in front of, which is literally a pile of comics that is in books that is like 4 feet high and 3 feet wide. I have a lot of books I haven't read. However, I think it goes back to what we were talking about before, the thrill of the unknown.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I mean, the thrill of the new. And I mean, like, as I said, that's why sports fulfills like this. Oh, we don't know what's going to happen. Tiger King is on and, it
Something
launches.
might get eaten by a lion or a tiger.
Yeah.
Not a lion.
So, yeah. And, I'm going to watch Citizen Kane. I never watched Citizen Kane before. Oh, is that where Rosebud comes from? Oh, I see. So it's like, yes, there's a lot of comics. And I'm certainly, now that we're really settled in, getting stuck into catching up on some of my classics that I've missed. And I just was Zooming with some of my writers, and Corey McCreary is reading all the X-Men comics, and God bless her, she's all the way up to Onslaught. So
all of them.
Yes, all of them.
Oh.
So there, I think she had started that project before the pandemic, but yeah, I mean, I think that if comics were coming out, it would be something that people were really interested in,
Right.
I think because it's a serial form.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people are really looking for something where they don't know the ending. They don't know what happens.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah. And I mean, even I thought, so here's a really crazy, crazy, crazy idea. It's like if I were doing this, I would be doing, AWA is kind of doing this, but like I would get someone, or, get it banked, and I would start doing weekly web comics of Batman and Spider-Man.
I'm really kind of amazed that they have never done that, period. I mean, I think that goes down to fear of the direct market. I mean, honestly, like not having a platform like that just seems kind of crazy to me. And I do think, honestly, I think that AWA move was very, like, I think it was slept on because it's AWA and most people don't really pay attention to them. But them doing Webtoon and Tapas was really fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. And, doing it themselves, and supposedly they're trying to get more into digital. And, what is interesting is that there are these super well-funded startups like AWA and Bad Idea, and maybe even TKO, because they've been announcing some new things as well. And they're kind of forging ahead as best they can, like they had a war chest built up so that they can kind of do things, they didn't lose their jobs. And they didn't have a lot of overhead because they don't have gigantic staffs that they had built up over 20 years. So they're kind of trying to do things. And I was literally trying to see if there's still a Spider-Man comic strip.
No, I don't think so.
I guess, it ended on March 22nd, 2019.
There you go. Gotta bring it back.
Yeah, I mean, I would totally bring it back. That's what I would do. And if I were the editor at one of these companies with these characters, because I think I just, the counter argument, and Brian Hibbs and I went back and forth about this, is like, if they have digital comics coming out of the issues that we can't sell, then everybody's going to go to digital. They're not.
No.
They're totally not. That's already, look, do you think people are going to stick with Zoom when they could go to a bar and see somebody in person after this is over? No fucking way. Do you allow swearing?
Yeah, go ahead. I don't care.
So no fucking way, and people are not going to switch over to digital during the pandemic. I mean, maybe they'll decide it's a little bit better it's an option, but they're not going to give up on that thing. People want to go to the comic shops. People want to have that experience. And I'm like, don't you think people not buying your product at all for like 2 months, now it's probably 3 months minimum, don't you think they might just say, hey, you know what? I don't really miss it.
I think I saw a retailer actually say that this might make people aware of comics piracy, and I'm like, I think that cat is out of the bag.
Oh my God, it is.
It's really fascinating, honestly. Like some of the stuff, sometimes I honestly, like, this is no slander to retailers. I love them. But sometimes they have a tendency of seemingly coming up with excuses because they really don't want to do things. And yes. I mean, everyone does that. That's not just a retailer only thing. But at the same time, when you're coming up with things like, that people might discover comics piracy, I'm like, that is a very busted excuse. That is nothing. But okay, let's go back to the main thing though. Direct market distributor. So why do you think it's a yes?
I think it's a yes because of what you actually said. You said that you'd heard that they
were already talking about it.
DC was actually thinking about this before. And I think both Marvel and DC saw the flaws in the Diamond situation. And, just again, let me back up here. The reason why you cannot buy new periodical comic books right now, when you can buy almost every other product that there is because of Diamond. Okay? Yeah. Diamond shut down. I'm sure one of your questions will be about that. So Diamond shut down. It was the sole distributor. There was no other way to get these products. Mm-hmm. So that, and like we're going to set aside Comixology and, there actually are a couple other digital platforms, but, let's set those aside. So the reason why you cannot buy periodical comics anymore is directly because of the Diamond monopoly. And you know what? That's bad. That's bad. It's just bad business.
And I think that basically everyone was kind of aware that the direct market was a house of cards, but they realized also it was a house of cards that was reliant on something significant happening that would break it. And this has exposed those cracks in a way that very few things really could. And so honestly, I agree with you. I think that even if it isn't like even if it's not Diamond, I mean, it's probably still going to be Diamond Plus. I could easily see like there being like some sort of secondary thing. Now, it's not going to be a Heroes World thing, I don't think. I don't think like, DC or Marvel is going to buy their own thing necessarily. But I could see some sort of alternative means coming up, just because I don't think anybody's ever going to want to find themselves single-threaded again.
No. And I mean, the other rumor that came up during all this was that Penguin Random House was looking to get into the comics market. And
that disappeared quick.
It did, but it's true. It is true. I've heard from quite a few sources that I trust that, had firsthand knowledge of the fact that there were inquiries, there were discussions. Penguin Random House is a huge distributor of books. To get into distributing graphic novels wouldn't be that hard. And, obviously it's the periodicals that, nobody wants to do it. Give me a break, know? But maybe you swallow that with the, you take the bitter with the sweet, you know?
Yeah. Okay. So this is an update from Friday, whatever today is, April 17th. And we recorded on Thursday, April 16th. Then we got up, we had a nice day, had some coffee, hung out, usual Friday, and then the internet broke and comics broke and lots of news came after we recorded. So Heidi and I jumped back on to talk. There's a number of things that came up. Marvel furloughed employees, which is sad. San Diego Comic-Con was canceled, which was smart. But the biggest news is DC is distributing through other means, which from what I hear is DCBS and Midtown. And they are starting April 28th with limited titles. A kind of motley crew of titles, really, when you look at it. It's like Batman and Daphne Byrne. But
yeah, right.
So this is happening, Heidi. What the hell?
Well, I did say we'd come out of this with more than Diamond as a distributor, so bingo for me.
Yeah, we were proved right really fast.
Yeah, less than 12 hours later. But a little more than 12 hours. But listen, you didn't really need to be Nostradamus to figure that out, because DC had announced it back on March 28th, that they were planning to look at a multi-distributor model. Okay, so. This isn't really shocking. And I keep hearing that both Midtown and DCBS were the viable, options for this. They're two huge companies. They're Diamond's two biggest accounts. And if anyone had the infrastructure to do it, they probably have kind of some of it. I don't know enough about their model to know for sure, but I do know this. I know that Midtown has been fulfilling Marvel's subscription and comp copies for a while now.
I literally just heard the same thing.
Yes. So, that was hiding in plain sight. And to be honest, UCBS is a huge mail order company, and they already mail out tons of comics every week. So,
and they're close to Diamond. Aren't they close to Diamond too? Or they're close to a printer, or they're close to Diamond? I'm trying to remember which.
They're in Indiana, so they're in the Midwest. And, I'm a little hazy on flyover country, but, the geography probably is fairly favorable to them. Yeah. So what's funny is DC, DC hasn't publicly announced that Lunar Distribution and UCS Comic Distributor will be, distributing these comics earlier than Diamond. Like Diamond reopening was big news at 10 a.m. and then at 10:11, it was not even the big news. But word has gotten out fast, as they say. And so when I first read it, of course, I Googled Lunar and UCS, and nothing came up except these very bare bones websites. And I before I could do the who is, the internet sleuths were all over it. And it's funny though, because as I said, well, one of these has to be Midtown and one has to be DCBS. And I said, and I bet UCS isn't DCBS, because that would be two on the money. Right. So they actually tried to do a little swerve of, covering it up, one having the name that was like the other, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, I know that they're separate companies, but I do think it's kind of funny. Like they had to be separate companies as distribution to like comic shops versus distribution to like individuals. But I do think it's kind of funny. It's kind of like when they film a big movie under a different name. And like they want to hide the fact that like they're shooting a Lord of the Rings movie or a Marvel movie, so they call it like Hot Shot or something like that. Right. And it's like, well, we still know. But it is interesting because Diamond. That was one thing I forgot to mention is Diamond announced that they are targeting mid to late May to come back. It is really interesting because we had talked yesterday before we started recording. We didn't talk about it in the recording about how, hearing some stuff about DC's coming back at the end of the month. Mm-hmm. And then we had also talked about how we had heard that like the big two were trying to find alternative distribution even before the coronavirus stuff came up. This matches up perfectly with what I heard, that they were like, I think this has been in the works for a while. Does this match up with what you were hearing in terms of at least DCBS and Midtown? I heard DCBS. I had not heard Midtown.
Yes, it kind of does. I'm a little, I'm sorry I got a little rattled there, David, because literally people are DMing me right at this very second. And,
when I got on Skype, I was talking with a comic writer who works for DC, who will not be named, and I made a joke. I was like, "Sorry, I have to get on to talk to Heidi again because you broke comics," and he just laughed.
Yeah, right. Well, it does seem that yes, it does match up with the vague things that I'd been hearing, and I do. I mean, one of the keys is that I've been hearing for quite a while that DC didn't want to be exclusive with Diamond anymore, and this would seem to confirm that, and which is pretty huge in and of itself. But I mean, it's like we were saying earlier in the podcast. It's like, why, we've discovered the weak point, the inflection point, that one kink in this hose,
and it breaks.
Cuts off. Yeah, and it breaks. So, I think this is a wake-up call for everybody, obviously. Diamond just did release a little statement that, my site's very slow. I wonder why. But, they said they will continue to work with DC. So, I mean, I guess DC will have 3 distributors now?
Yeah. Well, so I do want to ask really quick. I'm sure you've heard from retailers. I've heard from retailers. Responses mixed.
It's all over the place.
Let's say mixed. Yeah. I mean, there's some people that are excited. There's some people that are not. And the thing I'm curious about is 2 things on the retailer front. One, do you think that this will be largely viewed as a good thing from what you're feeling? And then 2, do you think that there's going to be any consternation that effectively the largest competitors that these retailers have are now their distributors in part?
I'm definitely getting pushback on that already. Like a lot of retailers are very upset about that, and they view things. They're right to be suspicious of it. But on the other hand, I mean, UCBS and Midtown were already these huge companies. I mean, I don't think that this is a move to put comic shops out of business.
No, I don't think so either.
I don't think so. It isn't. This is a move to get comic shops new, exciting product to sell.
Yeah.
As soon as possible. I mean, is that really what the goal of this is, to put more comic shops out of business?
No.
Why would they do it then?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that's the case at all. I think that might be the response from some, but I also think that might be kind of with the immediate response, and then maybe as it starts hashing out, that's an entirely different story. My main question with all this, though, is like, okay, so today, 80% of America is in shelter in place. And most shops cannot really do normal shop things. And I guess my question for this is like, why now for DC? Like, why April 28th when most people can't sell comics? Like, in their press release, in what they said, what I saw in the Hollywood Reporter, was basically that they've heard that people want content and that some shops want stuff. But I know a lot of shops that just can't do it. So what do they do?
It's all a big question at this point. I mean, some comic shops are doing mail order, others don't want to be involved with that. And, I think, if this were me, I'm not a retailer. I do not have a retail background at all. But at the same time, it's, Brian Hibbs in his column about, the pandemic said it's going to take a while to get the engine started. And, this is putting a little hot start on the spark plugs, That's what this is. This is getting the engine going again by any means necessary, really. And I mean, I tend to think that's a good thing myself. I mean, I think the longer, like we said in the rest of the podcast, the longer that this inability to get new product goes on, the worse it is for in every way, for the habits of retailers, for their cash flow, for publishers' cash flow, for creators' cash flow. So, my initial, and honestly, everyone listening to this, it is 2:42 on Friday afternoon. I was supposed to be taking the day off.
Oops.
Well, yeah, anytime I plan that, this happens. So this is literally me talking as literally my DMs are going wild, stories are coming out, people are pinging me. So this is literally seat of my pants thing, thinking. So my initial thought is, hey, put a little hot start on that engine. Let's get ready to get rolling. And, if Diamond is up and rolling mid-May, that'll be fantastic. At least it's like everything else that I said, you can order things online, and so let's get them going again.
Last thing I want to bring up, a mutual pal of ours may have talked to both of us about this, the idea that maybe this is no more than a 1-month stopgap. What do you think about that?
That's possible. That's definitely possible. However, I think the veil is shredded. The paint, the curtains have been lifted from the painting. You can't unsee what is happening today. Yeah. And it's definitely a power move by Midtown and DCBS. Absolutely. And is it to destroy the comics industry? I really doubt that. So, because both of them are dependent on the comics industry.
That would be such a fascinating move for DC to do. It's like, why would they want to destroy the comic industry? They're like, I don't want to say that. Well, they are dependent on it, honestly. Like, they need a healthy comic industry to make money.
Yeah. And in the state my mind is in, I can't remember whether I said this last night, but I'm pretty sure I've said it on your podcast before that, I actually looked these statistics up yesterday or the day before, but there's something like 2,500 indie bookstores in the United States. Mm-hmm. Okay. There's something like, 2,000 or less, somewhere around there, comic book shops in the United States. So that's actually a very comparable number. And, like keeping this passionate network of independent bookstores going is something that every publisher and every distributor and every creator would want, Yeah. So I just, I hope that people are thinking about this, but given the history of the comics industry, maybe they aren't. So I don't know. This is truly developing.
Yeah. We'll see what comes from it. Okay. From at this point in the podcast, we're going to jump into hilariously talking about a lascivious relationship in Heroes World, which is a perfect place to transition into.
Yes. So is one of your questions about Image Comics, by the way?
It isn't, but we can talk about them if you want. Can we talk about one other thing first, though?
Yes. But make sure you circle back to Image Comics.
We'll bring up Image after this. I just want to have a quick interlude to talk about the William Schanes story that came out.
Oh.
Okay, this is really quick. I'm going to do a 10,000 foot view of it. So basically, former Diamond employee William Schanes, he made a post on Facebook that was about how the way that Diamond, Steve Geppi, found out that Marvel was going to do Heroes World, was going to create their own distributor and ditch them, and it basically locked in DC to help them eventually become the only it set us on a path to Diamond becoming the only distributor. Was basically because, well, it wasn't basically, some unknown executive at Marvel had a lover who called Steve Geppi out of the blue and told him that was going to happen because she was, kind of a jilted lover. She wanted revenge. And so that's how they decided to go to DC and approach them, get them on an exclusive contract and make all that happen. Heidi shared it. And it is the most amazing story. So my question from you is, who will be the jilted lover that saves comics this time?
Oh my God! Well, did she really save comics?
Kinda.
She tipped off. She set off a chain reaction that Ron Perlman had laid out the dominoes, and she tipped over the domino. But man, I don't even know. The reason why we all knew that the direct market was a house of cards, and we all tolerated it. I say all of us. A lot of people, moaned and complained about it also, and saw that it was flawed, and myself included. But nobody really did anything because we were all beholden to it in some way. I mean, the way that I make a living definitely is beholden to the direct market, and so. now that it's crashing down around me, I have to ask myself, how am I going to keep this going? So the thing is that we don't really have a solution. I mean, nobody does in any of this because there's no safe port. There's Governor Cuomo, and that's about it, and even he, I mean, he's aged 50 years since this started.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know who the jilted lover. I don't know who's going to ride up to the rescue. I really don't, because, I mean, I think AWA wants to ride up to the rescue.
I will say it's very interesting seeing AWA and Bad Idea buying when everybody else is putting pencils down.
Mm-hmm. Well, like I said, they got the money. They had the money, and when nobody else is doing anything, you get the attention for it.
Well, so let's jump into one of the heroes, one of the early heroes, and I'm curious as to what your comment was about Image. So what's going on with Image?
So with Image, they're in an even worse space because you not only can you not get their periodicals, but you can't get their graphic novels because they go through Diamond book distributors.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not alone in that. Dynamite goes through Diamond. I think Dynamite's the only other. I mean, Lion Forge and No, they don't anymore. That's right. Lion Forge is
Simon and Schuster, aren't they?
Yes, Oni is Simon and Schuster. Correct. So is Boom. Dark Horse is Random House. DC's Random House. Marvel is Hachette. So every other company has a distributor that's still functioning, but Image doesn't. So it's I keep pointing this out because Diamond does have one of their warehouses open that is shipping back order. Like there's a big pallet of Watchmen's there, okay? And if you need to get Watchmen's, they will ship you out Watchmen's. And, it's in a state that hasn't closed down yet, I guess. But what happens when the Watchmen they run out of that? What happens when they run out of The Walking Dead?
Right.
Then Image is, they can't even get their, I mean, I think some of the new, DC's new graphic novels are actually coming out.
They are. Yeah. They're releasing the trades digitally still.
Mm-hmm. And I think they're actually coming out in print as well.
Sure. I mean, where do you buy them even?
Well, you can order them on Amazon.
I thought Amazon isn't shipping non-essential. Or did they start switch? Or
they said they were going to. Well, they will ship it eventually.
Yeah, it's April 21st, isn't it?
Yeah, you know what? I ordered my Amazon. Like I make a shopping list. Like when I need something, I just put it in my basket on Amazon, and then like every couple of weeks I send in an order. Right. Mm-hmm. So I ordered cat food, which would be an essential, correct?
Correct.
And then I ordered some USB cables because those suckers just break all the time.
Yeah.
And then like a little other gadget that I needed. And it said that I would get the cat food right away, like in 2 days. And then the others would come like in a week. Well, guess what? I got a box this morning that had everything in it.
Interesting. So yes, maybe it's not as much as they say it is?
Exactly. So, but I mean, you can't count on it. But yeah, you can order these things and you can buy the digital, but you can't, but Image does not have that ability to ship out their new graphic novels, as far as I can tell.
Well, and the other problem with them too is, and this isn't a problem unless, pandemic, but like they don't have, it's like if you're Marvel, you have Marvel Unlimited and you have other product lines you can work with. Or if you're like Boom, you can make a deal with Netflix because you own part of your stuff. But because the creator-owned platform, because the fundamental nature of creator-owned, they have less cash flow opportunities.
Right. They have no assets.
Right. And it's very interesting. I don't know. I mean, I'm certainly not in the game of speculating who's going to make it out and who's not. But I do think like it's a tough position for everyone, but I feel like it's a particularly tough one for Image in some ways.
Well, it is because of their Diamond and, because they gave their allegiance to Diamond as their book distributor. And like, believe me, a lot of people, that's been controversial. Let's put it that way.
Sure.
And so again, when they come out of this, they're going to have all their eggs in that basket. I don't know. I mean, I don't follow the book world as closely as others, but I mean, Ingram is shipping, Ingram is sending out books.
It has been really interesting because, we've talked a lot about the direct market, and by we, I mean the general conversation, but really nothing's been coming up about the book market at all. And part of me wonders if it's because it's just not impacted in the same way, and so that the world keeps turning for them.
So I talk about this on More to Come, my other podcast, plug, that I do for Publishers Weekly with Calvin Reed and Kate Fitzsimmons. And I always, press Calvin to give the update on the book world because, that's his primary beat. And they're hurting too, like independent bookstores are shut down. They're also furloughing or laying off people.
Barnes and Noble.
Barnes and Noble has closed. I mean, Barnes and Noble furloughed a bunch of people, including Jim Killen, who's the book buyer, the graphic novel buyer for Barnes and Noble, and absolutely one of the key people in the industry for the last, 15 years. And Macmillan laid off some people, and, some books have been held back. So no, they're absolutely hurting, but it's not a systemic failure. Book sales were up. As a matter of fact, see if I can find that headline in my inbox.
Are you talking about like the book scan numbers for 2019?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, they had wasn't the book scan numbers for 2019, but it was Publishers Weekly. Where's that? Print unit sales had double-digit gains last week. Print sale the week before Easter gave another boost to the units of print sales, like the last time for many months. Print unit sales rose 13.7 the week ended April 11th over the week ended April 4th.
Well, I mean that's partially because like the April 4th might have been pretty bad.
Yes. But right. But I mean, the point is, it's going up. It's
right.
Going
yeah.
Even if it is not, even if it went from one copy to two, it increased. And as
opposed to the direct market, which is going nowhere.
Right. Exactly. The juvenile nonfiction category had a 15.9 increase the week, led by a 62% jump in sales in the holidays, festivals, religion segment. So everyone went out and bought an Easter book for their kids last week. Mm-hmm. That's why it was up. But the point is, David, you could buy an Easter book.
Yes. Yeah.
For your children.
I will. Okay. I actually want to point out that I didn't realize it was Easter until I woke up and I looked on Twitter and I saw Easter was trending.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Well, I never would pay attention, but I soon learned that it was because everything was closed in New York, which isn't normally for Easter. But I think everybody was like, you know what, we're giving you the day off.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there's a lot of unexpected things in this, and that was one. Like you couldn't go out and do your supply run.
Yeah. All right. So next thing I want to bring up for the guessing game. So there's two different things that have come up in terms of potential ideas for solutions for the direct market. One was now. The other one is long term. So I want you to guess which you think would have been more workable in the short and long term. So first, ComicHub solution, which, for listeners that don't know, is basically a pre-order system using a retailer suite of tools called ComicHub, where you could pre-order a comic now, a print comic, get a digital copy that you can read through ComicHub, and then you would get a print copy later whenever comic shops open. Or the list of ideas Brian Hibbs included at the end of his latest Tilting at Windmills. Brian, don't yell at us.
Yeah. Well, I'm a big proponent of ComicHub. I've been a big fan of theirs ever since I heard about it. And so I would have to say I do think that a ComicHub-like suite of services would be great for comic shops. Now, I know you're friends with some of the ComicHub folks, and so am I. And all that said, there was a lot of flaws in the software. I mean, I don't
less
think
the software, more like it's just they were trying to roll it out so fast.
Yeah, they did. So, but you know what? I'm setting aside the human element because that's always where it happens. But the software is still buggy. But I've seen more stores signing up for it. And if you followed what ComicHub offers, one of the things that they offer, which is so ambitious and so cool, is that. Again, I love to shop online, clothing from my favorite clothing retailers. And so one of the things that ComicHub offered was this kind of marketing where, once you signed up for the service, you have, your customers sign up and they sign up to pre-order Batman, which, as you know, everyone from creators to retailers says the pre-ordering is the holy sacrament, right? Like, pre-ordering the comics was the way forward. That'll save everything if just people pre-order. So, ComicHub was a way to pre-order. But then if you pre-ordered, Batman 94 with Punchline's debut or whatever, then they would look at it and say, send you an email. It's like, if you enjoyed Punchline, maybe you'll enjoy The Joker by Brian Azzarello and Lee Bermejo. So, because every retailer, if you click on something, then they send you an email later on that says, hey, I noticed you were looking at this raincoat. Maybe you'd like some galoshes. Right. Well, so if ComicHub had ever been able to make that system work for retailers,
I mean, it is working, isn't it? I mean, they have like the playlists where it's like if you click on, if you like Kieran Gillen, here's like all the Kieran Gillen stuff, or here's this book, you might like these. It kind of does like the hand selling for you.
Yeah, exactly. I tried to sign up for ComicHub, but I couldn't because there wasn't a store near me. So anyway, that's what I was saying about the flaws in the system. But yeah, that's like retailing 101 now,
Yeah, that's the sad thing is like when I had Stu on the podcast, I talked to him about it. And the funny thing is like, and I kept trying to not insult him, and I didn't mean it as an insulting way, but like so many of the things that ComicHub does are like fundamentally basic retail things that just didn't exist in comics for one reason or another. And this is the main reason why I wanted to bring it up, is like looking at that list that was in Tilting at Windmills that Brian and an array of other retailers came up with. A lot of those feel like Band-Aids. They feel like kind of, I don't know, like I don't see how those types of things solve problems so much as just make things slightly less annoying.
Yeah, they make pre-order, final order cutoff day easier.
I mean, I like one of them on there was like trade releases would be delayed further after like the single issue releases, so like there's more room for the single issues to breathe. I personally think
fuck that.
Yeah, I'm like 100% against that, and also not doing day and date digital seems like completely ridiculous. Like that genie's out of the bottle, that's not going back in. But the trade one to me was just kind of a microcosm for the whole thing. Like the part of the, honestly, here's a true story. So like Image books, I have a tendency of buying like the trades because they come out fast enough, but I also typically buy the single issues. And then the one, here's the publisher I have problems with. Sorry, Boom Studios, but it's true. Their trades take so long to come out after like the arc ends that I forget the comic exists.
Right.
And I just never buy it. And like that's basically what retailers are asking. Like basically, I think if they did that, they would actually be driving sales away from themselves.
So Saga Image does it as soon as possible.
Yeah, it's
right?
the next month. The Saga schedule.
They do it the Saga schedule. They do it the next month. And what's the best selling trade?
Saga.
Image
for every comic shop.
Now, maybe we should set aside Brian K. Vaughan. Maybe we should set him aside because he is a bit of an anomaly, all right? But still, it's like, no, that's not how you do it. So honestly, I'm sorry. And, I love Brian to death, honestly, he's one of my oldest best friends in the industry. When we disagree, it's a brother-sister fight. But I do think ComicHub, and this, like you're saying, it's like, Diamond offers software, pull box software as well. But on it, if you have more than one store, it doesn't show all your inventory.
Yeah. It's also like perpetually 2 months away from being 2 months away.
Yes. It's yeah. But I'm just saying on ComicHub, like if you own 3 stores and your customer comes in and says, oh, I'd like a copy of, I'm looking around my room here to see what's a good, My Friend Dahmer. Right? And they look, oh, we're sold out. And then they look and they say, oh, but our other store has it. So we'll order it for you. Mm-hmm. Or you can go there and buy it.
Here's a fun fact for you. I did this reading guide episode with Oliver Sava, and on my very last book, it was Kaiju Max, which is like my great passion in life. I love Xander Cannon, that comic rules. And I said that the first person who emails me after this podcast goes up, and that hasn't read Kaiju Max, I will buy you the first trade. And I went on to Cape and Cowl Comics' website down in Oakland, a shop that I've never been to, went on ComicHub and immediately ordered it for a person in Georgia, and it was delivered in 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
And it was awesome. But my thing is so here's my fundamental issue. And it's that I feel like this is the wrong time to try to fix what's broken rather than trying to find new ways to do things.
I agree. And you know what? This is, like I said, I think this was a week where everybody just kind of, settled into a miasma of being quarantined, for an indefinite amount of time. But we're not going to come out of this the same. We're not going to go back to the way things were. I mean, that's just, there's the fundamental human needs that we have that, of course, we're going to find ways to fulfill those. Like, people like to see other humans, that's the number one thing of this. And, now that's
also really like restaurants.
Yeah, right. People like to have someone else cook a meal for them. And, those are tainted now.
Yeah.
We're going to be wearing masks for a long time.
Right.
And, we're not going to be shaking hands. We're talking about fundamental human behavior in all societies are going to be changed or altered, or, they're going to evolve. So, the direct market is also going to evolve, my friends. Is there going to be a direct market? I don't know. But it's like, this is the time when we need to say, like I always say this, comics will be around. There will be comics, like they always make comics. It's, they can't kill them. Like, you can't kill music. You can't kill books. You can't, movies will be around. If it's Netflix or in the theater, it's going to be around. So, let's figure out a way that let's build our utopian society for this, our utopian industry. Let's go for the best it could possibly be.
And God only knows we have time.
Yeah, we kind of do, So
yeah, it is really interesting because it's like, I don't know. I kind of wish that we would get to a point where, and believe me, again, this is not me trying to slander retailers, but it's just like, I wish that when new ideas were presented, it wasn't, let's kill this thing, rather than let's try to make this better.
But oh, go on. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I wish that was more of the instinct, because I think that there is validity to a lot of ideas, and they just get kind of poo-pooed fast because of fear, an understandable fear.
Yes.
But go ahead.
No, there's a lot of retailers who aren't old school. And there's a lot of new retailers. And I think you do get a very different message from them. A lot of the loudest and most vocal and, most respected retailers have been at this for a very long time.
Yes.
And they are very, very much have the way that they grew up doing business. And then you have a lot of newer, younger retailers who do think of themselves more like indie bookstores. And, they're not quite as afraid as some of the older ones. I've talked to a couple. And, they have, they already had an Ingram account, they already had a Random House account. They already had other distributors coming in. So did Brian. He wrote a whole column about that.
Yeah. Look at Brandon Schatz.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Brandon, I have on the beat, I have two retailer columnists. I have Brian, who, I'd be idiot not to run, Tilting at Windmills. It's one of the most read and most respected ongoing columns out there about retailing. But, I've also worked with Brandon Schatz at Variant Editions in Edmonton, and his wife, Danica LePage, and they're a very forward-looking shop. They're young. They have a whole different attitude about it. And,
he thinks single issues should be digital.
So, this is the thing that we've gone around and around about for 10 years. Okay. And
you and Brandon, or the industry?
Everybody, and if I ever, it's actually up on Comic News Insider, but if I ever get my video up, which I guess I'll do that tomorrow. But we talked about this on the podcast that I did last week. But there's several doomsday scenarios for the pamphlet, but it's so entrenched for some reason. There's something very appealing about the comic book pamphlet, the comic book.
Yeah.
And it has a nostalgia factor. It has a collectability factor. It's somewhere between a graphic novel and a baseball card. And in that weird Venn diagram, it has a life that's very hard to kill. So, I mean, there will be comic books after this for sure.
Oh, yeah, of course.
No, without any question, there will be comic books. Will Marvel and DC be publishing the majority of them? That I'm not as certain of. But,
yeah.
They could go digital, or they could, license. I think it's more likely they'll license them out. That myself,
You mean the most likely result or the most likely alternative result?
The most likely alternative result.
Yeah.
And, Disney's great at licensing things out. And, I mean, they already did it. They did it with the Disney comics for, 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
So,
single issues. I mean, I do think it's funny. Like, this is not me making fun of you, but I do think it's funny. I feel like your corner has for a long time been the pamphlet's gonna die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and it's funny if it survives this, that damn thing is immortal.
It is, but I already decided that the pamphlet's immortal. However, there's a difference between there being comic books, not to give them the floppy or the pamphlet, the put down names or periodical comic books, but should they be the driver of the industry?
Yeah, well, I mean, going back to the digital thing you were saying earlier, where it's like, I honestly so they were doing that new Batman Black and White series, and then there's also like digital first one, and there's also like the Batman animated series type series, like what I forgot what it's, the Continuing Adventures or something. The Adventure Continues, whatever. I mean, I kind of feel like they've never really embraced the digital first that never goes to print thing as much as they should have. Because like you're talking about what is it, Mombato, the new manga thing you were telling me about? Mangamo. You look at that. You look at like Shonen Jump, which is like some stupid number for a monthly subscription to access like everything. It's like $1.99 or $3.99 or something like that. And I mean, like those are huge like platforms for those companies, and they make lots and lots of money off of it. And I'm kind of surprised that Marvel and DC have never done that in a way that is different than like Marvel Unlimited or DC Universe. Like I feel like there's a Continuing Adventures option that they're not exploring, and that they can do parallel to like the traditional stuff.
Well, Marvel did try it. They've tried everything, and you might recall they did some digital comics that were tied around movies coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Like they did some I think they did Iron Man comics that were digital.
Those weren't those horrible motion comics, were they?
Yeah, they might have been horrible motion comics, or AR comics or something. But I mean, they definitely, everybody's like, well, why don't they do?
They've done things.
The movies they have, and they didn't work. Nobody was interested. Now, is it because they sucked? I'll be honest, they didn't put A-list talent on these projects, okay? Although, you know what, Matt, I take that back. Matt Fraction did this digital Iron Man comic,
I think it was good, too.
Yeah. And so, they tried it, and they didn't continue doing it. Why? The reason why was it didn't make money.
Right.
I mean, Marvel, if it made money, Marvel would be doing it and doing more of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all very interesting. Well, next thing, okay. Who are you more concerned about? Comic shops or smaller publishers?
So that's an interesting question, because there's various answers to it. I mean, there's no question but that some smaller publishers are going to go out of business. I mean, that's just, it's going to happen.
Right.
Maybe some larger publishers are, we just don't know. And however, I am more concerned about comic shops. I think I said this on one of the Slacks that we're on. And, people were like, are you more concerned about comic shops or creators? And I said, well, a creator can go do things, but a comic shop is a comic shop. Like publishers can revamp, they can shut down, they can go on hiatus, they can, it can be like Caliber Comics or, Now Comics or, any of the, there's tons of comics publishers that, came around 30 years ago, and then they go away, and then somebody revamps them, and then they go away. It's like in a way, a publisher might never go away,
right?
But a comic shop is a comic shop. I mean, you can open a new store, but that, starting from zero on a brick and mortar store is so much more daunting. I mean, it's like a restaurant, it's like you might have people who like that location or like, the service that you offer, but there's so many intangibles about running a successful retail operation. There's location, there's timing, there's weather, there's staff. Do you have a good staff, and so, so I'm more concerned about comic shops just because they're the only thing there is,
right. I will say, so I mentioned opportunities earlier, and obviously opportunities are limited. It's highly mitigated by the fact that most people cannot leave their homes. But right. I will say that I think it's been really interesting to see how comic shops have kind of tried to adapt to this. Like Brian Hibbs, not somebody who wanted to have an online shop, but he has one now. And like, so Chris Conroy from DC was tweeting about how he's like, oh, I want to read 20th Century Boys finally. How can where can I get these? Any comic shops that follow me, where can I find this? And I just went on Comics Experience's site and I sent him a link, and they had the first 5 volumes, the first 5 perfect editions on there. And I was like, hey, you can get all the first 5 here. And like the fact that you could do that now and you weren't able to do that before is cool. Like there's some things that people have been coming up with. Like, do you know Katie Proctor of Books with Pictures?
Yeah.
So Katie is doing this personal shopping thing. I put in an order of $100 surprise gift pack where I just like listed a bunch of things my wife likes, and I was like, find something for her, and she's gonna do it. And like that was something that didn't exist before. In an ideal situation, would that be what Katie is doing with her time? Probably not. At the same time, I do think that there are things that we're going to learn from this that will be useful going forward. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, I agree. And I think that, the fact that so many stores didn't have a Shopify account, or, I want to mention bookshop.org, which is another, like, this is a coincidental initiative that was planning to launch earlier before the pandemic. And then the time that it launched was very fortuitous for the pandemic. But basically, it's kind of like ComicHub for books and indie bookstores, whereas like you go to the site, you could set up your own storefront on bookshop.org, and you take orders, and then Ingram ships out the books, and you get like 30% of the cover price. And so there are, like, if you were a brick and mortar, bookshop.org is foolproof. You don't have to do anything. You put up a storefront and then you sell the books.
Yeah.
Ingram ships the books. So you're off the hook for that. But Brian and other, Katie and Brian are like, Katie's like, I'm in my store just selling these books. I'm wrapping them up by myself. And, Brian was like, oh, this is so much work. And hey, listen, everybody's at a different, stage of what they want to do and how they want to do it. But, if you didn't have a digital bookstore before that, like, why not? It's free money. It's free money.
I will also say, I'm pretty sure that Katie literally lives above her shop.
Yes, it is. It's easy. Yes, she's passionate. I understand. My local is JHU, and they have a store in Staten Island, and both the guys who run it are in Staten Island. But I understand that every once in a while, one of them treks into Manhattan, so that they go into their store and get some stuff and pack it up and ship it out. So.
Can I tell you a quick story about my shop? So my shop, I'm not going to name its name because just in the off chance that somebody that works for the city of Anchorage happens to listen to this podcast, it'd be really easy to figure out because there's only one shop here. But they shut down, like they were not able to. We went to shelter in place, and they were deemed an inessential business, and they were unable to have people even do curbside pickup. They could do mail order, but I wasn't really interested in mail ordering like my single issues, and so I actually worked it out with one of the employees there that they were going to meet me in a parking lot of a grocery store, and we were going to do like a straight up like drug deal like exchange.
Nice.
It was great. He because social distancing, I actually opened up my trunk. He put him in the back, and then I drove off, and it was awesome. That is definitely not something you should be doing going forward as a business, but at the same time, problem solving. We're all doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's absolutely right. It's really funny. I'm actually looking as we were talking. I hadn't read these comments. I wrote the story about Bookshop, and then somebody asked in the comments. So again, this is a website that you set up your own storefront on Bookshop, and then if somebody buys a book off your, you promote it. If somebody buys a book off your link, Ingram ships it out, the world's biggest book distributor, and you get like 30%. It's pretty easy, right? Mm-hmm. So a question here, how is this different than Abe Books? The Ingram is mailing out the books instead of the bookstore staff doing it themselves? Yes.
What is Abe Books?
Abe Books, it's like on, Amazon, where you are selling used books, right? So yes, you don't have to mail out the book. That's awesome.
Yeah,
right?
That's super awesome.
And then Brian is saying it won't save anything, but it sure can't hurt for stores without the ability to generate their own websites. Awful margin, though, and 100% not sustainable, especially if it encourages any level of channel creep. Again,
man, he really hates channel bleed. He hates it.
And also, it's, awful margin. Yeah. It's free money. It's free money.
Yeah.
It's free money.
Free money is good right now.
Yeah, but here's the best one. I wonder what percentage of the books shipped through this are POD, through Lightning Source, which might be viable. It's books. You go on and you order books, like For Whom the Bell Tolls, and
I feel like you're an evangelist for this place.
I mean, it's like with ComicHub. It's like, hey, that's a good idea, and then everybody's like, but it will destroy the totem.
I'm going to say, I just want to say that I am so glad that I lasted less long than you did in the Facebook group that shall not be named, because I feel like I would have probably pulled my hair out.
Oh, well, I mean, but I would see, anyway, I'm still angry about that.
I don't want to get anything started.
Yeah.
Well, so I just have a couple more things. I did want to ask, I've mentioned these opportunities. I've mentioned that I think that there's chances to look at these things, and that there's, for creators, I think that there's opportunities in how they promote themselves, and also digital stuff. Retailers, I think they're learning some new ways to approach this. I think the whole industry has maybe have a come to Jesus when it comes to distribution. But what would you like to see come out of this? Obviously, everyone living and healthy is a number one answer. But in terms of the comic book industry, what do you think would be good things that we could learn from this experience?
Well, I do think the distributor thing is the main one. And I do think that the monopoly of Diamond is proven to be, not all that great, or has severe problems, which you always knew. And here's why. Here's why it's a problem. And, it's no ding against Diamond. I mean, they honestly have tried so hard. And, one of the reasons why they apparently ran out of money so fast is because they lent everybody money.
Right.
They would float stores all the time, and they would float publishers, and they had to start cutting down on that. But, it wasn't, it's a very marginal business. So I do think that has to come out of this. And I mean, like I said, I don't know. I mean, I am the pamphlet is doomed, but there's so many people, like I said, it's doomed as the primary focus of the industry. And I would argue that it already is not the primary focus of the industry, just with the sales that kids' graphic novels are having in bookstores. I mean, up until that terrible day, kids' graphic novels were the hottest thing going. And, DC has launched their line of YA and kids' books, and they're doing great. They're really selling well. Mm-hmm. What a surprise. And I mean, Marvel hasn't really gone in, but they don't have to, because Disney does 1 billion of these books.
Right.
Right. So, I think the bookstore market really had taken over the periodical market. And I think that had things gone on without this gigantic disruption, that would slowly that trend would continue. So I do think when we come out of it, the trend will hasten, because again, I'll say it, you can buy a book right now, but you can't buy a comics periodical.
Yeah. Actually, I just realized, did the ICV2 and Comicron report, did that not happen yet? Or is that not happening?
That usually happens in the summer.
Oh, it looks like it's normally in May, beginning of May.
Yeah.
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 Because I was wondering about that, because it really did seem like this is the year that the bookstore channel was going to overtake direct market, or is it graphic novels? No, graphic novels had already passed.
Yeah, they had already.
Yeah, I don't know. And it is really interesting. I just did this big feature on Webtoon, and the thing about all these different things is people talk about how comics aren't happening, but comics are happening. It's just not in the way it used to. Mm-hmm. And go ahead.
No. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, and I just think that's interesting. It's I think that while I don't necessarily subscribe to the idea that the pamphlet is doomed, even in this situation, now, I do think comic shops will make it out of this. I do think the direct market will make it out of this. But I do think that it will maybe continue the shift towards things that it was already shifting towards. And as you said, perhaps hasten it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't say the pamphlet, like I said, the pamphlet will be around, but I have been anti-pamphlet pretty much my whole life for a lot of reasons. So no wonder I didn't last at DC Comics very well.
I should send you a picture of my long boxes that are like 6 feet to my right. It's a nightmare.
Well, I have lots of long boxes here, and I can't get rid of the damn things. So, that's my problem.
Yeah. Okay. Well, last thing for you, this is a two-parter. One, most surprising thing that's come from all of this in terms of, and I'm leaning towards the positive on this. Most surprising thing that's come from all this for comics, and then the other thing is most surprising thing for you that's helping you deal with all of this, because I think, like, I'm not trying to make it seem like I'm a coming of age tale and then I'm going through personal discoveries right now or something like that, Heidi. But I do think that there's interesting things. Like, okay, so this is really dumb, but like, because I was sick and because I was trying to find ways to cope with a cough, I got into like just drinking hot water with honey in it. And I tell my wife, I call it hot honey water. And it's really dumb that is like an actual comfort in my life. But every day I'm like, I'm going to have hot honey water and this is nice.
The health food people say you should put a little vinegar in there.
Oh, hell no.
The Honegar.
The Honegar? That sounds disgusting. I don't know.
Yeah, it is, but it's really good for you. But most surprising positive thing coming out of this. Well, I will say, like when this all began, again, my DMs were open, and boy were they. I learned so much so fast from so many people. Everybody was, willing to tell the secret that they'd been carrying around for a long time. And so I guess for me, I kind of knew this, but it had it confirmed, is that, they already were looking at ways for Diamond not to be a monopoly. Okay. There's already a movement afoot on that. And I do think that more channels will just strengthen the industry. So I think that was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
Just again, nobody's talking about Webtoon or Tapas going out of business, are they?
No, they are not. I bet their readership's through the roof, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm sure. There's so many things to follow up on, but that gets me to the second thing that I've learned, and, about myself, I guess, or my life is, I've adapted very well to working at home. I'm actually, even though everybody thinks I'm a social butterfly, I'm actually very I have a lot of psychological coping mechanisms that allow me to hunker down and enjoy hunkering down. But 3 months is a long time to hunker down.
Yes.
So that's too long even for me. So that is I think when I have my Zoom talks with friends, we have like regular little happy hours or brunch, or I talk to my family. And, a lot of times we just kind of say how we're feeling, and almost everybody, I'm really glad to hear that you have your schedule and, you stick with it, because everybody I know just has these mood swings, and, this is so, I'm going to tell you the worst sad thing I could possibly tell you, but then I'll end on a happy note. I promise. I guess. So the saddest thing that I ever heard, and I think about it all the time when I hear about a doomed effort, is, and I thought of this a lot with ComicHub. Okay, was the Essex whaling ship. This is a famous story of this whaling ship back in the 1800s that was rammed by a whale. It was the basis of Moby Dick, and the survivors got into these rowboats, these lifeboats, and they didn't want to go to South America because they heard there were cannibals there. So they headed out this other direction and, drifted in the ocean for a couple months, and of course ended up eating each other. And but some people survived, and a couple of them kept very detailed diaries, so we know pretty much everything that happened on the boats. In fact, I should start a diary. I really should. But one of the things was that at one point they were like, look, we need to row. If we could just row in this direction, maybe we could make it to this island. And, they didn't have much water or food. And so they all drank some water and ate a piece of seagull. And then they tried to row. And, but by then they were so haggard and so wasted that they just couldn't do it, and they had just waited too long. They had waited too long. So I just think of this really, the whole story is haunting, but that idea just haunts me, of like, it's the opposite of every superhero movie where they decide that they're going to, this is, Superman going through the core of the earth. I'm going to save everybody. Sometimes you make that heroic effort and it doesn't work. So, not that we're all going to starve and start eating each other at all, but, sometimes the heroic effort doesn't work. So that's, the saddest, grimmest thing I could possibly think of. But, I think, oh man, how do I come out of this? But
I'm very interested to see how you bring it back from cannibalism.
I wasn't quite sure how I was going to come out of it, but I guess, maybe the idea is that there's a little Rick Grimes in all of us.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I honestly think that it's really, I don't know, like, obviously, doing auctions on Twitter to sell stuff is not the same as like, fighting a zombie horde and becoming organized and trying to bring back society and stuff like that. But I have been very heartened to see how people have responded to this. Like this week, it felt like it was the week where people were like, okay, this is going to be here for a bit, so we have to do what we can to help. And so seeing like the Creators for Comics thing, say what you will about the management of it, but at the same time, it's still a good idea. And it's yeah. I mean, and it's amazing seeing the stuff people are throwing down. Like Kelly Sue DeConnick put her like cast and crew jacket from Captain Marvel, like a one of a kind possession that belongs to her, that I guarantee you was very meaningful to her, and she put it up because she wants to help. Like,
right.
Like
that's huge. Yeah. That's really huge.
Yeah. Like that type of stuff is really kind of astonishing. And the thing is like, these are people who probably, like you look at some of the creators who are trying to help, and I guarantee you those people probably need help themselves, but they're trying to do what they can to help because, there's an opportunity to do that. And I think that Rick Grimes nature, has manifested itself in like, even though we're all separate, togetherness might get us through this. And
right. And we're such a community. No, comics are such a community. I mean, I guarantee there's no other industry where every creative and reader is, customer, everyone from the creator to the customer is fretting every day about their retail and distribution partners. Okay. I mean, there's just, comics are 100% connected in every way. And that, what you just talked about is, that is the hopeful part of it. I mean, that's why I know comics will come out of this. I know there'll be a comics industry after this, is because it's such a strong community of people who really care about each other, and they care about everyone up and down the line. They really do.
Yeah. Little did we know that all we really needed to survive this, though, is Jim Lee continuing to sketch forever. Because God, have you seen his auctions?
No, I haven't. All right, but he did it on eBay, right?
He's doing it on eBay. He did like one that I looked at it and I was like, maybe I can afford this one. It's like a Wildcats one. It's got Zealot and Grifter on it. And when I looked at it, it was $9,300, and that was with 2 days and 20 hours left. It's up to over 10,000 now, and. Wow. It's like every single one of them that he's doing is like going for over $10,000. I think after his first 14 or something, he'd raised over $106,000 or something.
Right.
And
right.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of, it is really cool seeing that. And he's getting people like, he just announced that Olivia Coipel is going to do one, and he's got Art Adams that did one, and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it is kind of amazing to see these types of things happening, but I don't know. There's a lot more to come. There's always more to come, but Heidi, that is all I have for you. Don't touch doorknobs. Stay safe. God. Take care.
All right. Thank you, David. You stay safe as well. And, this will end. I keep telling you, that's the most positive thing. It will end someday. The Black Death ended. It just took like 3 years.
Bring us back to cannibalism.
This will end too. This will end, yeah.
Thanks for coming on, Heidi. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Off Panel with Heidi MacDonald from The Beat. You can find her on Twitter at ComicsAce and on The Beat at comicsbeat.com. As a heads up, Off Panel is once again brought to you by Sketch.com. Check out the new version of the site and consider subscribing for access to all of the site's content and its members-only forum. If you're a fan of Off Panel, make sure to check it out on Patreon. If you back the show on there, you not only support it, but you get early access to each week's podcast, access to weekly content, and more. Also, don't forget to subscribe to Off Panel on iTunes or Spotify and give the show a rating or review while you're at it. You can find Off Panel and Sketched on social media by liking it on Facebook at /Sketched, that's SKTCHD, following it on Twitter at @SketchComic, or following me at @SlicedFriedGold. Big thanks to all my existing patrons, including Charlie Chu, Greg Peterson, Stefan Hall, Dan Lee, Cameron Schrader, Pensacola Pop Comics, Kim Estlin, Philip Mara, Christian Shelton, Kenny Porter, Chris Pachalo, Torrin Groombeck, Buzz Bubbles, Christopher Todd, Transmitter Down, Harry Sayer, Waltz Comics and Books, Carl Mazel, Danny Ollie, Paul Slates, Akil Wilson, Alex Dimitriopoulos, Terry Dodson, Troy Jeffrey Allen, Liana Kingus, Keegan Ray, Milton Lawson, Wesley Gift, Sean Kirkham, Harry Small, Alistair Ross, Julio Anta, Brett A. Schmidt, Jason Goodmanson, Paul Reinwan, Vita Ayala, Aditya Bidikar, Tara Ferguson, Dave Slusher, WMQ Comics, Akil Kokachi, Phil White, Sean Pinello, Kent Heidelman, Philip Seavey, Al Ewing, Ryan Alcock, Nick Michelin, David Kelly, Robert Wilson IV, Nick Polito, Owen McCready, Brendan Fletcher, Gary Maloney, Jonathan Nilsson, Matthew Groom, Jason Massey, Adam Bogert, Xavier Files, Matthew Taylor, Tyler Turner, Nick Patera, Jacob Sorelli, Ford Gilmore, David Baraldi, Ira James Udaskian, Nick Hall, Bjorn Basin, John Hendricks, Steve Anderson, Ian Maxwell, Cliff Chang, Benjamin Chipper, Colin McMahon, Chris Palmer, Scott McGovern, Nathan Fairbairn, Kat McKenzie, Greg Rucka, Adam Heifel, Fiona Staples, Chris Hallren, Mark Abnett, Mike Murphy, Michael Shirley, Tom Barnett, Jim Demonakos, Norbert, Nick Lowe, James Kaplan, and Mission Comics and Art in San Francisco. You guys are all the best. A quick thanks to Upright T-Rex Music, Road performed Off Panel's theme song just for the show. Check out their music on Spotify because it's completely delightful. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week for another episode.